Hi, I'm Jennifer McDonald, and I'm doing medical interpreting. The role of a medical interpreter is very precise. How you handle yourself and your bedside manner and the situation that you're in can make or break you. Since 1994, the National Council on Interpretation in Healthcare, NCIHC, have met to clarify our role as an interpreter. Our job, as stated in the role of the healthcare interpreter, is to provide accurate and complete transmission of messages conveyed in one language into another, allowing the patient and provider to interact as nearly as possible as if they were engaged in the same language exchange. In the beginning, it was hard to find the correct way how to conduct ourselves in the situation that we are in the interpreting settings that we were in. They narrowed it down to 4 basic categories, as stated in the role of healthcare interpreter. The first is the interpreter as a conduit. This was an interpreter who was more of the invisible type, who just relayed the message from the patient to the medical personnel and then back again, the medical personnel to the patient. The interpreter as a manager of the cross-cultural language-mediated clinical encounter was a second one. This means they're more involved. They help overcome boundaries and are actively assisting at all times. Then number 3 is the incremental intervention model. This model makes for the flexible of all 4. She doesn't have to play one defining part, but can pick and choose from each one which one is necessary for the times needed and in the settings needed. Then lastly, the interpreter as an embedded in her cultural linguistic community. This one's different from the others because this role has a culturally bound aspect that binds the interpreter to the community itself and help preserve that community at all times. So she's more on the deaf side, trying to make sure that the community is saved and the culture and the sign language is saved as well. It all comes down to these basics. The role of the interpreter is to be a language medium for both parties. They are to provide accurate information to all parties involved to their fullest extent. They need to make sure they serve as a cultural bridge only when needed, and they need to make sure that they draw all boundaries between patient and medical at all times. And most of all, they need to make sure not to speak for the patient or the medical staff. One of the other things you may do is help explaining medical documents. This can be important because the doctor needs to see all history on the patient, so the patient needs to make sure they understand every question that is there presented to them. One of the most important things that you need to remember as a medical interpreter is to keep boundaries with your patient and your medical staff. HIPAA laws are very important in this situation as well. Confidentiality is key and must be kept at all times. This is why you cannot have a family member, friend, or medical staff interpret for them. The basic role and function of an interpreter changes at all times, but the basic idea will always remain the same. You are a language medium. A medical interpreter compared to a legal interpreter is very similar in a lot of ways. There is that binding confidentiality in both situations that you must abide by, or it could cost you your job, your patient's trust, or in a courtroom case, the outcome of the case itself. You also must be very knowledgeable in both medical and legal jargon and information. This is because you need to be able to explain in full detail about the issues at hand and be able to communicate that very clearly to your client and to the other people involved. If not, this information can be lost in translation, and neither the client nor the others involved, whether it's the doctor, lawyer, judge, none of them will get the appropriate information that is needed. Therefore, you have not done your job properly. According to the RID Code of Professional Conduct, unlike a medical setting where only one interpreter is needed, in a legal setting you work as a team. There will be 2 people. This is because the information is so complex with one interpreter that while one is signing, the other one must be checking for accuracy. Another difference in the legal setting is the interpreter may be called later as a witness to defend their work in the courtroom. This is also stated in the RID, Code of Professional Conduct. Also, there are specialized credentials for this legal interpreter. It's called the SCL. On another spectrum, medical interpreting versus educational interpreting is very different. Educational interpreting is important because you are there to giving a child the information needed to build their future, their life, plus you're giving them a chance to get a good education in the public school system that they all deserve. Boundaries are set between the interpreter and student, but they have more of a personal relationship versus your medical interpreter and the client with them and the providers with them. You will most likely only see this person once in a great while in a medical field, but in the educational field, you are with these people 5 days a week. In the educational interpreting, they also get to expand inside the educational setting. They are able to go on field trips and interpret for football games and pep rallies and really get involved in what encompasses the educational medium. As an educational interpreter, there's also special credentials that are involved. This is called the Educational Interpreter Performance Assessment, or the EIPA. An important thing to remember is that confidentiality is key to maintain for yourself in all settings, whether it be medical, legal, educational, anything. It is very important to keep this confidentiality. To be a qualified medical interpreter, you must be RID or NID certified. No specific certifications are needed beyond this, but it is highly recommended that you take continuing education and workshops to further your knowledge in the medical field. This is important because you want to give the patient the information appropriately. You don't want to go into a situation where you have to explain that the patient has pancreatic cancer, but you can't explain what a pancreas is, where it's located, or what its function is. St. Catherine University offers a wide variety of courses, both online and in person, at workshops all around the United States. A lot of the online classes are free, and some of the areas they touch in the classes they offer are like medical terminology, how medication is taken appropriately, and even how to help deliver a baby. They really touch on every aspect that you can think of. There are pros and cons to everything in life. The pros definitely speak for themselves in this situation. You get to wake up every morning doing what you love to do and do what you're good at. You're helping the deaf community who has fought so hard to have the right to have an interpreter there for them in their community and for their lives. Also, you can work with all different kinds of people, young and old, and on a one-on-one situation. No one day is ever the same. But one of the most feared ideas about being a medical interpreter is not getting the information across clearly and accurately. I spoke with Dr. Hugh Rutledge, a local doctor who works with multiple deaf clients. And I asked him what his fears were with working with deaf clients and interpreters. He stated, a fear that I have, even though the interpreter is doing their job accurately, to my knowledge, is what if they miss that one important piece of the puzzle that puts it all together? The client would then just walk away, not fully knowing what I'm trying to convey to them. This is a fear that runs throughout all interpreting settings, whether it's legal, medical, or educational. Also, as stated in the interpreter settings comparison chart, the medical staff may not understand your role as an interpreter. The concept may be challenging to you, but this is where further education does come in handy. And then there's challenging situations that you may not be accustomed to, like life or death situations, medical information about the patient that you may not feel comfortable enough to know. As an interpreter, you are bound by a code of ethics that help you guide your way in any field you wish to follow. Branch out, try different settings and experiences. You have a gift, and if you keep that gift in just one situation, you don't know what other boundaries you can cross over. Build a knowledge base that could be more than you could ever have imagined. We became interpreters because we found a gift in ourselves. We need to take the time to expand that gift and perfect it. The avenues are out there. We just need to know how to put our finger on it.